Hello, good human. I'm Dr. Marie Murphy, and I'm a non-judgmental infidelity coach. In this video, we're going to talk about grieving the end of a secret affair. Affair relationships can be really significant relationships. And in fact, your affair relationship may be the most meaningful, significant relationship you have ever had. It may have lasted for what you consider to be a long time. And if the relationship ends, you may feel an immense amount of pain. And for all kinds of reasons, you may not want anyone to know that you're experiencing an immense amount of pain. And as you may well know, experiencing a lot of grief without showing any signs that you're experiencing a lot of grief can be really hard. Putting on a happy face or even putting on an I'm reasonably okay face when all you want to do is hide under the covers and cry can be really challenging. Dealing with missing your affair partner like crazy and grieving the end of that relationship and keeping that process private can be hard enough. What some people do that makes it even harder is get really indignant about the fact, which actually isn't a fact, that they quote unquote can't tell anyone that they're in pain. Or they tell themselves that they should be receiving support from other people while they're grieving, but they can't get that support because their relationship was an affair. I want to legitimize some of these struggles, and I also want to call bullshit on a few of them. Let's start with the calling bullshit part. Not telling anyone about the pain you are in is a choice. If you wanted to, you could tell someone about your grief related to the end of your affair. For example, you can talk to me. If you want to talk to me, I'd be more than happy to talk to you. And you can talk to me by booking yourself an introductory coaching session with me. I will listen to and witness your pain and help you move through it. Or if you don't want to talk to me, find some other source of professional help. Don't try to tell me that that kind of help is not available to you. You can find some form of it, even if you have to do some work to find it. Hell, find yourself a therapist in training or a coach in training who wants to practice their skills and tell them that you'll write them a great review if they give you a couple of free sessions. There are a lot of people in this world who would probably take you up on that, right? What people usually want, though, isn't necessarily to talk to a professional, although, of course, that can be helpful and great, and that is exactly what some people want. But what some people want is to be able to tell their usual confidants about the end of their affair and receive support from those people. But for a lot of reasons, people often think that they can't tell their usual confidants about their affair and how sad they are about its ending. But what I see is that people usually have a greater degree of choice in this regard than they acknowledge. And what I mean by that is a lot of people who are grieving the end of an affair do have people in their lives that they could confide in, and they could choose to do that. Now, that would, of course, mean that someone knows or learns about your secret relationship, which you might prefer for no one to ever know about. But it's important to notice the choices you have and to own the choices you make. You can totally you can choose to not confide in your loved ones because you would rather them not know about your affair. But if you have people in your life who love you and care about you and probably would listen to you and would quite possibly keep your secret, don't tell yourself the case that you literally don't have anyone you could possibly confide in. You can't have it both ways, right? It's probably not true that you don't have anyone that you could talk to in your circle of confidants about your secret affair, right? It's fine to prefer not to, but recognize that you are making a choice. Now, Some folks say that it's not about protecting their privacy, but it's about not having anyone to talk to in their lives who would understand what they're going through. And I have two things to say to that. The first is that you don't know if someone is going to understand what you're going through unless you give them the chance to understand what you're going through. And it's fair to choose to not give someone that chance. But if you don't want to give the people that you know a chance to see and understand your pain, you really don't know what's going to happen, right? It's possible that the support that you crave is all around you and you just aren't making yourself open to receiving it. That is a possibility and it's worth considering. Now, on the other hand, if you believe that nobody in your life is going to understand what you're going through, that's also fair. But if you want people in your life, like non-professionals in your life, to understand your pain, you also have the option of seeking out new people who could understand your pain, right? Find yourself a support group for people who are grieving breakups. Talk to a member of your religious community if you're a member of a religious community. Go to an empty bar and find a bartender whose ear you can talk off, right? Find a new friend and agree to listen to each other's secrets without judgment. These are all things that you could do if you wanted to talk to a non-professional person about your pain. Or just go and talk to a professional. That's what we're here for, right? So if you want to talk to someone about your grief, if you want people in your life to see and recognize and support you in your grief, you can either complain about that not being available to you, or you can figure out ways to organize this for yourself. And I highly recommend the latter option. Or you can decide that you are willing to deal with your grief privately, right? You can decide that you aren't going to spend too much more time and energy being upset that you can't share your grief in the ways that you might ideally like to. Because here's the deal. We all have to process our grief alone to a great extent, even when we are surrounded by people that know exactly what we're sad about and are very supportive of us as we're experiencing our pain, right? This is such an important point that I think is often overlooked by people who are grieving the end of secret affairs and perhaps feeling a little bit sorry for themselves as they do. Even if we are grieving a loss that everyone we care about knows about, and even if we get a lot of the support, or maybe even all of the support that we would like to have from others, we still have to carry our pain alone. Only we can digest our own emotions. We have to do that part for ourselves and by ourselves, even if we are surrounded by people who love us and are doing really kind, supportive things for us. It's kind of like eating and digesting food. Get ready for a scatological metaphor. Yes, someone else can cook you a meal and serve that meal to you. And it can be lovely when that happens, especially if it's a delicious meal. But even if someone cooks us the best meal we've ever had, we still have to digest the food for ourselves and eliminate the waste we produce by ourselves, right? Somebody can be there to witness our pain, but they can't feel our pain for us. Somebody can serve us a nice meal, but they can't poop it out for us and absorb the nutrients along the way before we poop it out for us. There are some things that other people just can't do for us. And getting away from digestion and elimination and getting back to the topic of grief, the really good news is we really can learn how to relate to our own grief differently. We can learn how to witness and be with our own pain, even when we don't have many or any other people who are witnessing our pain for us or with us, right? We can learn how to digest the loss of someone who is really important to us on our own. And we can learn how to do this well, even if we have to do it privately or choose to do it privately. It may not be ideal to be in a position where we think that our best choice is to hide our grief from pretty much everyone we know, but it is possible to keep our grief a secret without minimizing it or avoiding it or denying it, for that matter. How do we do this, you may ask? Well, there are three main things we need to do. One is we need to learn how to meet our intensely painful feelings as they come or as we experience them. This is a critical skill for humans to master, and it's relevant to all of us, even if we never have to privately grieve the end of a secret affair. And this is something I can teach you how to do. If you enroll in my online course, you're not the only one, or if we work together one-on-one. The second thing we need to know or learn how to do is to manage our narrative about the breakup, about the end of the affair. Put simply, your story or what you think about your affair relationship and how it ended will determine the way you feel about the ending of the relationship, about the relationship itself, about your future beyond the relationship. And if you are telling yourself a story that makes you feel terrible, you need to learn how to shift your thinking about the affair and its end. And that is also something I can teach you how to do. The third thing you need to do to privately grieve the end of a secret affair is to give yourself some dedicated time and space for your grief to come out in all of its messy glory. You need to give yourself some unrestricted space to feel your feelings in whatever messy ways you need to. And you need to do this often and consistently until you stop needing to do this anymore. And what this might what doing this might look like varies from person to person. So for instance, some of us might want to walk through a field and just kind of like turn our head and our chest up to the sky and like feel the rain beat down on us or the wind blow through our hair or feel the rays of sun like hitting us and just kind of like do that, right? Could be great. Some of us will need to messy cry and let the snot pour out of our noses and howl and wail and bawl and do all of the like primal screaming things, right? We may need 10 minutes to do that, but then we may need another 30 minutes to let our like face return to normal so that we can go back to work without somebody saying to us, like, have you been in a car accident or something? Some people may need 10 minutes a day to journal about how they're feeling. Some people may need an hour a day to crawl under the covers and just hide. Some people may need 5 hours a day to crawl under the covers and hide. Some people are okay with doing these kinds of things that I'm talking about every other day, or maybe even just once a week. You have to figure out what you need, and then you have to actually give yourself the time to feel these feelings. Because here's the deal with feeling feelings that we don't want to let other people know we're feeling. If we make a bargain with ourselves that we will allow these feelings to be present within us and allow them to be expressed at designated times, and we keep our bargains with ourselves, our feelings will start to trust us and we will start to trust them. If we make a deal with our grief that we are going to let ourselves fully feel it for 15 minutes a day or an hour a day or whatever it is for you, and we stick to that plan and we make that time for ourselves consistently, we start to see that we can pretty successfully deal with our feelings at designated times and keep our feelings in check during the times we want to appear as if everything is fine. And if your goal is to successfully hide your grief, it is worth it to invest some energy into putting yourself onto a dedicated grieving schedule, right? This is very different from trying to avoid your grief. Totally different, or numb your grief, or bypass your grief, or tell yourself that you're not feeling grief, etc. You're dedicating time and effort to allowing it to be present within you. When you do this, you are treating your grief as legitimate. And when you treat your grief as legitimate and give it time and space to be felt and expressed, you will be able to move through it. And you will have a much better chance of keeping your feelings private as you move through them. If you don't treat your grief as legitimate, if you don't dedicate time to letting yourself feel it, that's when you're a lot more likely to start crying in the middle of an important work meeting or at a big family gathering or whatever, right? Listen, if you are grieving the end of a secret affair, I see you. I understand the pain you're feeling. I consider your grief legitimate. And if you want me to help you deal with your intense feelings, shift your narrative about your affair and its ending, and come up with a plan for grieving that actually works for you, let's work together. My online course, You Are Not the Only One, will teach you how to be your own witness and teach you how to deal with the discomfort of grief. This is a really big deal, people. Practically none of us have ever learned how to deal with the intensely uncomfortable feelings that we as humans are likely to experience at points in our lives. Practically, that's the word. Practically, none of us have learned how to relate to the feelings that we find it most difficult to bear. I know there's all kinds of talk out there about processing our emotions. I know there's I shouldn't say all kinds of, but there's at least more recognition than there used to be that it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to grieve. But let me ask you this. Can you skillfully relate to the emotions you find most uncomfortable to feel or most unpleasant to feel? This is a yes or no question, and I'm willing to bet that your answer is no. And if it is, I want to invite you to enroll in You're Not the Only One right now. Because when you do, you will gain instant access to me teaching you how to deal with the feelings that you find it most difficult to bear. And learning how to deal with the emotions that we find unbearable is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. And it's also the closest thing to a superpower that humans have the capacity to develop. And I am totally not kidding about that. And of course, if you want to work with me one-on-one, that's an option too. I will witness you as you grieve the end of your affair. I will help you move forward in a way that you feel good about. So the first step, if you want to work with me one-on-one, is to schedule yourself an introductory coaching session. Whether you want to do that or whether you want to enroll in my course, you can see the links that are associated with this episode wherever that finger is, or you can go to my website, mariemurphyphd.com. Last but not least, if you're hurting, I'm sending you all of my support through the interwebs. You're not alone. You will get through what you're feeling. Your future awaits you. All right. Bye for now.